What is going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. I'm BobbyFi. I would say with my man Eric Sheetsaver as usual, but as you can see, that man is no longer, well, not no longer. He's just not with us for the next couple of days. He's got his son visiting, I think, for spring break, and is going to be doing some of that stuff. So we won't have sheets, which is too bad, but I'm going to try and go through the slate and break it down for you guys as best I can, at least as of this morning. So just a couple things. Last night was definitely one of the worst nights I've ever had in DFS NBA. I got absolutely demolished. I didn't adjust to some of the information well. I could look back and say the same about everyone else because really nobody put up any scores that you'd think that would have been even cashable. The tournament winning lineups were tournament lineups that wouldn't normally cash. So that just gives you an idea of how weird it was. I think we've got another little bit of a weird one, but we've only got 5 games. It'll be after the deadline, so we should know who's available. And I don't see a lot of these teams comparatively to how many of the other ones we saw losing many key pieces. But certainly some things to keep in mind. So we'll get to it. All right, so let's get it started. And we're going to go game by game. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me for a minute because it's been a little while since I've done one of these completely on my own. That should be good. And you've got my DraftKings screen, I believe, right there. All right. So let's start off with Portland and Miami. On the Portland side of the ball, I'm just pulling up my projections on a different screen right now. So give me 1 second here. Look, it's Damian Lillard is not getting the same usage clearly that he had before. I do think CJ McCollum we can expect his minutes back now. And I think with his minutes back, I mean, the guy shot 5 for 19 in the last game, so you kind of want to throw that one out. I really liked him actually that night. And he put up 28 fantasy points, but like, again, 5 for 19. It's not a good matchup, obviously. We don't know what's going to be left of Miami exactly after the beginning of this day's over, so we'll see what they've got to go up against. We do know Gary Trent is gone. We do know Rodney Hood is gone. So that should open up even more usage for Carmelo, for Damian Lillard. As of right now, I'm putting Lillard, McCollum. I'm sorry, I meant McCollum there. McCollum and Carmelo as my priorities here, along with Derrick Jones. It's just a minutes thing, and there's even an outside chance I might get over to Anthony Simons, depending on, some long tournaments or something like that. But right now, for me, it's mostly going to be Carmelo, McCollum, and Lillard. I'm sorry, who get the bump, but I don't think Lillard is my favorite play. He's 10K. So I would rather personally be looking at the McCollum. And as you can see, I mean, the funny part is Miami's good defensively, but you can see that they do leak points over to the 1/2 positions a little bit because they've had guys like HERRO and Duncan Robinson. But I think that your safest bet, first off, would be Carmelo and Lillard. I think that Carmelo will probably see a pretty nice increase and should be fairly involved in this game. We're going to have some interest in Miami. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with Tyler HERRO. We don't know what's going to happen with Goran Dragic, and we don't know what's going to happen with Duncan Robinson. Oddly enough, I'm interested in each of those guys if they play. We know what kind of defense they play in Portland, but the real thing is that, look, we have Jimmy Butler and Bam, regardless of who plays tonight or who doesn't. They're both phenomenal plays, in my opinion. I'm leaning a little bit more the Bam. It's really close, to be honest. If any of the guards are out, I would go back to Butler, but I do think that Bam should have a nice field day here against Cantor, who, by the way, I didn't mention, but Cantor's in play. I just don't like the matchup for him very much. So if we did something like this is probably where I would be looking for my exposure from this game. But again, it's going to depend on who Miami ends up having available later today. Just the Bam. So if we were to play Bam, something like that, and then I think you can play Bam and Butler because the prices are reasonable, depending on, again, if the guards play. And this is a really big pace up spot for them. Well, it's not a huge pace up spot in general. So that's sort of one of the things that I'd like to, be looking at doing. I also really like Tyler HERRO, especially if Duncan Robinson somehow gets traded, which is definitely possible. And if there's no Dragic, but even if Dragic plays, Tyler HERRO, we can see, look, he hasn't been lighting the world on fire. He's missed. I mean, look at this field goal percentage, 36, 26, 25, 27. That's not going to last forever. Portland is the kind of get right spot. So I'm going to put HERRO, Bam. In order, I would go Bam, Butler, HERRO. But I think they're all in play currently as it stands, and we'll have to see who's available later this evening, and we can cover that. in our Q&A in our Discord channel. And remind me if you guys don't have the Discord channel, just let me know. I'll make sure you set up. So we just saw this matchup, and it's interesting. It's only a 3-point spread. We just saw what New York beat them by like 500 points. I think this game stays competitive. My highest level of interest would be Bradley Beal. Westbrook's price is a little bit. There's plenty of room. He can go nuts. You know what I mean? It was a terrible game. They got blown out. It wasn't really 30. I guess they were up by 30 anyway. But I just think that Westbrook is so. I mean, the upside is so high. But at the same time, like Beal at 9,200 versus Westbrook at 10,900, I think I might side a little bit towards Beal, but I definitely have interest in both of them. It's just a matter of what kind of value we get opening up. And we might have some because, as we know, there are still trades going on. So this is actually kind of an interesting, bizarre slate. It's one that I always say, make sure you don't put too much money out there. But at the same time, what else, you know what I mean? Like, this is also something we should be good at dealing with, is the variance. Now, they got killed in the last game, so they might shift some things. They've been struggling with Len. But I just want to point out, like, Len was playing well in the last game. In 12 minutes, 14 fantasy points. He actually was, numbers-wise, playing well. He doesn't rotate defensively, and it's a huge issue. So it does make it kind of a hard thing to trust playing him. But I will say that he stands out as being a potential long shot value. There is no Hachimura anymore. There's no Wagner anymore. Troy Brown was traded. Not that they were going to take many minutes, but any minutes they have are going to be gone. You've also got Robin Lopez in there, who's the other center option. But they're going to need to play big against this team. So Alex Len is certainly on the list for me, but not my favorite play. And we're going to jump over to New York. And it's interesting because Julius Randle was actually fairly owned because the matchup was so good. And you could see he dismantled this team. He still played 38 minutes, but they weren't those like necessity minutes. They weren't like, we need everything from you. And honestly, like, I think that if we get no Derrick Rose, now I think Derrick Rose, I've heard that he was going to play. I'm looking at my projections. They don't have him. And maybe I've just missed something because there's been such a flurry of information this morning. It's been a little hard to keep track of. But without these guys, Randle is absolutely in play. He plays a semi-point guard-ish type of role. We can just look at his game log without the regular guards. Now, I know he didn't have the same assist in the last game, but you can look at a 17 assist game where he basically was playing the point against Orlando. And he's only 3 there, but 8, 6, 12. You see that, he has that upside, especially with Derrick Rose out. So just a guy just somebody I wanted to point out that seems too high priced, but may not be. The other guys for me are going to be, as of right now, RJ Barrett, and I absolutely will take a shot on taking Elf off the shelf if indeed we have no Rose and Elf is starting. It's not that I love Elf or anything, and I don't love the price and all the things. Like, there's a lot to question. There's a lot. Who knows what's going to happen? But he's a guy who should thrive in this matchup. In his last game, sort of, you get an idea of it. If those minutes creep up to 28, he's becomes a good value at 5,100. I don't love this play. It's just guys I thought I'd mention, so wanted to touch on those guys. And I think that's pretty much it for me for this game. I do like Mitchell Robinson a good deal if he was to start. I don't know if they're going to give him his just starting job back. We'll have to see and wait how it breaks out with their starting lineup. But if Mitchell Robinson was to start, he certainly becomes in play. He smashed the other night against this team, but most of it was in that blowout-ish role. Put up 40 fantasy points. Noel has actually done a pretty good job in his absence, but I do think that their guy is Randle. And if for any reason Noel is the sit, you can see the minutes shifted right back over to Randle. But again, they were blowing him out, so it's kind of hard to know. I'm sorry, not to Randle, to Mitchell Robinson. All right, let's jump over to the Clippers in San Antonio. So we had this game last night. It was one of the unheralded whatever things I did right. Look, if you were getting 5x from a guy who was kind of expensive last night, you were doing something okay. They did play Kawhi a few more minutes than I thought they would. I thought they would have brought him out a little earlier in that third. But he, 32 minutes, his former team, he is not a vengeful sort. You can see that even this is just a highly efficient, very well played game. This is not like Kawhi going Kawhi nuts. What I would say is that you'll see projections in the industry for Kawhi tonight, probably in the low 30 range. The only thing I'd say is that if none of these games have been close. So just think about this for a second. We've got Kawhi, Atlanta. Okay, so that game became close. They were down 29 and stuck with the bench, so he didn't get to play the full run there. You can see the blowout against Charlotte, the blowout against Dallas the other way. He still played 37 minutes. But we can see that if the games are close, 40 minutes is what you'll see out of Kawhi. You know, I mean, you really might, even on a back-to-back. Now, the other question is, will they sit him on the back-to-back? And that's possible. They've been struggling overall this year, so they've done it less. And that would make Paul George a great play, who probably is a great play or a good play anyway against the San Antonio team. As of right now, I'm going to just assume, because they tend to be careful with Kawhi on back-to-backs, maybe we would assume Paul George. And then maybe I'm burying the lead by not talking about how Vucevic is a very good play here. I really have. I'm sorry, not Vucevic. This is what happens. All the guys who got traded, all the things that are happening, it's just overwhelming. Zubac, look, we saw him 32 minutes, 30 fantasy points against these guys. Been really solid and consistent. The Charlotte blowout we can throw away because they didn't play him after more than 25 minutes. Even played only 25 against Atlanta, still put up 30 because the bench made the run. Zubac is definitely a priority play for me. So I'm just going to note that Zubac. I think you want to keep an eye on the Paul George, the Kawhi and Paul George. One of them sitting could make things huge, but I sort of like both of them in that middling-ish range right now. And I'm gonna have to clear this out because we don't want DraftKings getting too mad at us. And that's just giving five ideas of who we like. And you know, RG and some of the other sites that I love and follow, they'll put up to 6 up there, sometimes 7. So I don't think we're doing anything wrong here. On the other side of San Antonio, it's hard to gauge on last night. Also, we should have Rudy Gay back for San Antonio, which, by the way, Rudy Gay is kind of in play. Like, the minutes aren't really there. They're going to need offense. He's more than happy to give it to them. On the second of a back-to-back, maybe those minutes are 25 or 26, and he at 4,100, it seems like a very good candidate to get us home at 20 to 26 fantasy points, maybe a little bit higher even with some upside. I mean, we've seen Gay have those explosion games of, in the 30s. He had a game in the 40s not too long ago. Not the most exciting play in the world, but a guy you can consider for some deep value. And again, I'm just going to say, we're going to have to see what Pop does. I'm getting messages and notifications on my phone left and right here. Yeah, we just got, look, Rudy Gay's in, and not only that, we got the official Lonnie Walker out, which I'm now noticing on my screen, but I didn't have that official confirmation until just this moment. So other than them, we're going to have to wait and see. I don't really want to go crazy with Derrick White. The problem is, it's not just about like DeRozan. Well, first of all, it's a lot of mouths. It's a lot of a price to pay. It's a consistently changing role in who's sort of initiating their offense. And especially with Rudy Gay back, I think it takes away from these guys a little bit in the second of the back-to-back. So for right now, I'm going to sort of wait and see on the Spurs and see who's in the lineup. We can revisit this one again later as well. I also don't mind taking maybe a stab on a guy who was really bad, but there's been some reason for some of this badness. And I just think that at his price on FanDuel, maybe we can consider POOLE, but it's probably a reach. All right, let's jump over to Philly at LA. I like Ben Simmons. Shocker for those of you who don't know me. We were big on him the other night. He was the guy who, I got to give a little shout out. I got to Shark. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but we're gonna do a lesson together. Guy's great. He's always around. See, Ben Simmons, he didn't have the monster game we wanted. It kind of faded away in the fourth. It looked like a great start. We thought we were gonna get 50 out of him. He didn't get there. This matchup, this is not the same slow down Lakers. I actually think that they'll play a little bit quicker with their current team as constructed. And I think Ben Simmons, honestly, this sounds weird, but I'm looking at him I'm looking at him as being like a forward center and being able to dismantle this inside. But the real story here is going to be Dwight Howard, because Tony Bradley was just traded, and we know they like to play big. I'm a narrative driven guy. Dwight Howard's price has gone down. There was the back-to-back, so he lost some minutes. I think Dwight Howard the Lakers front line is, look, we have usually an awesome front line, right? We've got the best, we've got Gasol, usually. We've got AD. We've got LeBron, who's actually played pretty solid defense this year. We knew he's still capable of it, but he hasn't really shown it in a few years. I think Dwight Howard will end up with a double-double tonight, and I think that he might end up with like 40 fantasy points with the way that they're going. Philly's still trying to win games. Remember, they want that home court advantage. There's going to be fans in the stadium. So they want that. We're going to have to wait to see, Curry and Green, what happens with them, because that would open up some other space for Shake Milton, who I also like a little bit. But as it currently stands, it's Harris and Simmons, then Harris for me. And neither of them are a must, but they're both high on my board. And I think that on this slate, you can play them together because it's not the biggest slate in the world. That's the way I would, I guess, best describe it. On the other side, on the Lakers side of this, boy, I mean, I'm a Laker fan and I'm struggling a little. I think the smartest thing we can do here, the problem is any advantageous matchup we would have in other spots, it's really going to be tough here. Like there's no, I don't know where they're going to put Simmons. My guess is he'll rotate between some Kuzma, some Schroeder. It's going to be tough. This is a tough matchup for the Lakers to stay competitive. I think Harrell's projections are a little exaggerated. Now, I've said that twice, and I've been, look, he put up 39, and that was his projected median in that game, and he was awesome against Phoenix in that game. And I just don't know how that was his median. Against New Orleans in the blowout, obviously only put up 28. This game may stay close, and Harrell's okay on a small slate, but not a guy who I'm particularly excited about playing. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't feel like the most optimal thing to me anyway. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's really tough with the Lakers these days. They bumped THT up. I think Caruso, Kuzma, then Schroeder are probably my favorites. I do really like Kuzma, and if I get a pretty sure feeling that for some reason, and I'll do some research, but that we won't get Ben Simmons on him, it's kind of hard because I've never really had this situation before. I would be much more interested because Ben Simmons, I could see just locking him up. But yeah, I guess Kuzma, Caruso are your main plays for me with Schroeder just behind them. Caruso, Kuzma, Schroeder. Sorry, I want to make sure to note this stuff. It's a little harder. I've always done shows with people, so doing them alone, it is me figuring out what I'm going to do. And that's been a great way to go back and forth with the sheets, but doing it alone is a little tricky. Also, though, a little bit faster pace, so at least we can take care of that part. Get it done a little sooner. So Golden State and Sacramento for the late night hammer along with the Laker game. It's going to be very, very hard to not want to play Poole here. I just think that they like him. They're playing him minutes. It's a perfect matchup. He shot 5 for 16, still put up 26 against a good Philly defense. Now he doesn't have to worry about that defense. So Poole is mine and everyone else's certainly like chalk play that I think we're mostly going to be sticking with in all formats. I also think that Wiggins coming off a bad game is interesting and may actually go a little bit overlooked. Really hurt me with that bad game, man. I could have used the game from a couple nights earlier. Maybe I would have won him, about 50K that night, I think, because I had a lineup with just a Wiggins that I was ended up in like 8th with, but it was my last my late night hammer, and he certainly didn't come through for me. I do like James Wiseman. The minutes are starting to creep up, and I think that creep up when he plays, like the 25 range instead of 22 or 21. And even though the production hasn't been massive, look, I've talked about it over and over again. I was endlessly talking about it. One of the right things I did last night. You play centers against Sacramento. Clint Capella, we saw what he did. Wiseman, obviously a very different situation, but at 4.8, certainly a guy we should be considering. And I think that he's a really strong play along with Poole in this last game. And then on, Oubre is fine. He isn't going to project incredibly well. They made him really expensive on FanDuel. His price on DraftKings is very reasonable. I just want to say, though, that the 45 he put up the other night against Philly, that's the most he's put up in over a month and about a month. And it'd been a while since he put up even 30. So just keep that in mind. I still like him, but I just think that you should keep that in mind. And then your super long shot play is Damian Lee for me. And there is an outside chance that Nico Mannion gets some run. I'm not going to do it myself, but I've heard some people talking about him. All right, let's jump over to Sacramento. Tyrese Halliburton, awesome. Just a good basketball player, right? Like a little bit like I think people have overrated him in some sense because I think that he's really good. He's just really good. But what is the next level he takes? I feel like he's almost like a developed basketball player. Sort of reminds me a little bit. I mean, not a totally different player, but when Kuzma first came out, everybody thought he was amazing, but he was old. He was experienced, and not that Halliburton's old. But I'm interested to see what next levels he takes. I hope he has it, but even if he doesn't, he's already a very good NBA player, and I like him quite a bit. In general, I like him for DFS tonight. So Halliburton would be probably my favorite king. Pretty close between he and Fox, to be honest with you. I really like Fox. I like this price tag on him. We've seen him play extremely well lately, even with Halliburton on the court. You look at it right here. You know, look, it's basically, other than the one massive blowout against Philly, you're talking about a guy who just lives in the high 40s, 50s, and sometimes 60s, and he's 8,700, and that's certainly, we could do a lot worse. And he's pretty consistent. Feel pretty safe playing him here, assuming the game stays close, which we have no reason to think it shouldn't. We also have Harrison Barnes' revenge. Not that that's even a real thing, but it's just interesting noting. I like the way Barnes has played all year. I would be very careful with this one and make sure you just don't build a lineup and forget about it before the deadline. I don't think I'm going to get to him tonight anyway, but if Barnes is somehow out or anything like that, and even if he's not, I think Buddy Hield is worth taking a shot. But priority plays, go back to the Zubac. I love the Howard play as Simmons or Harris. I like Beal. I got, just going back to highlight throughout the thing, McCollum, Bam, Butler, and HERRO. There's a lot of good plays for a big slate. And I'll have a lot more information that'll be a lot more in depth later, because right now it's a little bit tricky as everything is going completely wild in the NBA with this trade deadline. So I will be back with you guys later. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We've got some new exciting stuff. We do have a site getting developed, and we should have something up pretty soon and have, our picks, our priority stuff. Yeah, we'll get sheets of spreadsheets. And we'll get everybody making money the way Sheets and I have been lately, and the way that a lot of you have been lately. And we'll just keep printing through NBA and the rest of NBA and MLB season. Anyway, guys, thanks for letting me get through all that. And I would say for Sheets, I'm Bobby, and we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards. But I guess I'll just say good luck to everyone, and I'll see you this afternoon.